Hello, everyone. This is William Del Pilar, your favorite conservative Latino, and welcome to Fired Up, where we torch the nonsense and light up the truth. Gear up for this week's political circus, where facts are rarer than a politician's spine at a town hall. Voter purges have Democrats clutching their rolls like it's a dystopian spring cleaning. Poof! Dead folks, illegals, and duplicates vanish, yet they scream voter suppression louder than AOC slamming oligarchs from her private jet. David Hogg's slamming the DNC faster than he's pedaling to a gun control rally, swinging $20 million to blast geezers into retirement homes. Tulsi Gabbard's pulling the curtain on election fraud faster than Dorothy busted the wizard's con. Elon Musk sniffing out financial scams like a quarter-cent sniffs out a sailor on payday. And China's choking rare earths from the U.S. like Hillary Clinton does a whistle. Hillary, I like you. I really do. Oh, and Harvard's dodging transparency like it dodged Asian applicants. So grab your popcorn, butter it up, Fired Up's uncovering and scorching the lies. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is William Del Pilar, and we got a hell of a show for you guys tonight. So let's get right on into it and bring this week's guest up on stage. Let us welcome the G-Man, and let us welcome back Miss Annette Ross, who has been MIA, as G and I have gone kind of wonky with the economics there. How y'all doing? How you doing, Miss Annette?
Good. Broke my toe there, William, so I'm on the mend.
Ooh, how'd you do that?
You know, just therapy, just weak bones, trying to walk. So, but I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Getting ready for Easter weekend.
Yes. It's kind of funny on Easter weekend because, if people who call it a conspiracy theory, you would think if it was a real conspiracy theory, they would have gotten men to validate it, because back then women weren't seen highly, and there were mostly women who were like, yeah, we saw him come out of that tomb.
That's true. Mary Magdalene. That's right. Good. That's correct.
You know my Bible.
You know your Gospels. That's right.
Yes. I had to jump on our gospel guy. He's a Christian. Because the problem with Christians is, and they throw it on Christians all the time about, well, a good Christian wouldn't do that when it comes to violence, war, and all that. And I'm like, have you guys read the Bible? Deuteronomy, verse, I forget what chapter, maybe chapter 20, verses 16 through 20. It's like, smite your enemy, don't leave him. And it's kind of like kill them all.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, William, you can go back even further than that. Didn't Cain kill Abel?
That's right.
Yep.
He's like, pass me the popcorn. What? Boom. Gee, how you doing, brother?
Good. I just want to say I like Hillary too. I want to live. So praise Hillary if you want to live. Remember, Terminator. Come with me.
I know. That's right. Follow me if you want to live. So we got a heck of a show. Before we go on, let me make sure the audience understands that. Make sure you bookmark grumblingsmedia.com. and you're probably listening to this podcast at one of our other platforms such as YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, or Pandora. Actually, YouTube and Rumble if it's live, but you're probably catching us there on tape as well. We are at those outlets, again, YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, and Pandora, under the handle Grumblings Media. And with that, ladies and gents, let's get right on into it. So Just the News reported that Republican-led states have begun removing hundreds of thousands of registrations from voter rolls, citing inaccuracies. And this California and San Diego, and we have it's a trio, but we only saw two publicly all the time, a trio of little old volunteer ladies who kind of got this going 15 years ago. And then it got national attention, not on national media, but from national outlets, starting with Mark Levin. Then another group took it over. And that kind of led the charge into cleaning up the voter rolls, because a lot of voter fraud was happening through the voter rolls. And states like Texas, Georgia, and Ohio are purging their voter rolls. And we just had, I want to say last year, almost 1.5 million voters purged from the LA County voter rolls. Let's start with G. Your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's great that we're doing these in states where I think they have to have a voter ID in order to vote. So it's hard for someone to fake being someone who's dead if they don't have the ID as well. So it's great that it's happening there, but it needs to happen in states like California, right? So it looks like they are purging some, but we need the voter ID. I know that when I moved, I was registered in 2 different locations. And I believe that election, I could have gone to both locations and voted if I had wanted to. Of course, I didn't, because I'm an honest guy. But and I believe they eventually reconcile that back at the registrar of voters. But it's just too many loopholes that opens it up for fraud. So I think it needs to come to states like California and New York and some of these others that also need this.
But Annette, every vote must count, even if it's a second, third, fifth, 12th, or 34th time. What are your thoughts?
Well, the states I was can Jesus vote? Is this our Easter special? I don't know. Our Easter.
Well, hold on. He cannot vote because he vote Democrat. He rose from the dead. Do not forget
that. That's a good point.
I'm quick.
States I was reading about: Iowa, Missouri, Idaho, all Republican. Basically states that are trying to clean this up from the duplicates that they found. And a lot of them weren't really big in numbers, but I think they're looking for bigger numbers, right? Maybe 16,000 I read in one state. And I'm not sure. I think I agree with G. Like, what about, are the Democratic states going to follow suit?
Oh, no.
Well, wait, isn't that what I was going to ask you about that, as President Trump sort of asked that we clean this up?
Well, the process is happening, but it's not going to, those states, it depends who the governors are in those states, but even the governor can only push it. He can't force it. I think that falls under, I forget what department, I'm drawing a blank.
I think it was the legislation, right? They're the ones.
No. There's an elected official that falls, like Attorney General, Secretary of State is who it falls under. And those are, separately elected. So whoever controls that will, in essence, control the cleaning up. But you can sue. The reason LA was forced to clean 1.5 million is these little old ladies took this to court, granted with the backing, I forget of what national organization, and it never went to court. The case was so bad against the Democrats or the nonprofits that were trying to defend it that they did an out-of-court settlement. And they settled that, okay, we'll clean the rolls up, et cetera, et cetera. That's how bad it was. And every cycle you hear about homeless voting, as G's example, during one primary, I was registered independent. I got a Republican and a independent voter ballot here in San Diego. And even though, when I called it in, they said, oh, we got it covered. I wasn't registered twice, even though I had received it twice, they said. But the point is how many are, then you got the voter roll, the drop boxes. There's a reason Democrats want mail-in ballots. There's a reason Democrats state it's illegal to ask for an ID. There's only one conclusion. I mean, you cut every excuse out of the way, and there's only one conclusion. It's so you can cheat.
So when you look at Georgia in 2020, I believe that Biden won by basically 44,000 votes across 7 states or 5 states.
Right.
You don't really need this big vote margin, right? But he got it somehow. Got 12 million votes that suddenly disappeared in 2024. And the Democrats are all wondering where those votes went. Well, I think it might be because a lot of dead people ended up voting. You get some guy who grabs a bunch of ballots off out of the mailboxes and starts filling them in for these people who are either incapacitated, dead, or non-existent. So, yeah,
No,
I
mean,
think it's great.
Something funny about it, but that's so hard to prove. Is that why they're talking about paper ballots again?
Correct. You hit something on the head, Annette. It's hard to prove. It's Jamie Miller, who we all know has come on here at times.
Yep.
Said it. It's not about the goal is to get the ballot in the system. Once in the system, they can't pull it out. And remember, Jamie is a veteran of the 2000 attempt of Democrats and Al Gore to steal the election when they were counting votes.
Oh, the hanging chads.
Yes, he said it was so bad that they realized what Democrats are doing. It's like even if they disputed it once it was in system, they couldn't get it back out. So he said their goal eventually they just threw everything out the window. So we got to stop the recount. We got to stop this recount because they were just trying to get these votes in the system. And that's, as we saw in a previous many months ago, the Michigan case where the Chinese national was busted as having illegally voted. And then when somebody goes, well, what about his ballot? Well, we don't know what he voted, or we can't prove what he voted. So it's going to be counted, and it's in the system. And that instant validates everything that Jamie said. See, that's what the naysayers, they can hypothetically, theoretically, but there's a natural case. What happened once a vote was in the system? It counted. And that's why they want the mail-in ballots. That's why they want the drop boxes, and he who controls the registrar's office controls if the ballots get accepted, as we saw cycle after cycle after cycle in Broward County, Florida, which was democratically controlled, many election cycles, and they finally got busted, and Ron DeSantis fired her, took his control and the powers he was given as a governor and shut her down. And that, so what Trump is doing is a first step. But again, these GOP the GOP party in these blue states, they've got to get on the ball, and there's too many rhinos. I have debated rhinos here in California, intelligent men and women who will tell me to my face, oh, there's no voter fraud. You just don't want to believe. They're ignorant. Any final words before we move on?
Or worse, they're racist. They'll say, oh, you can't make voter ID a thing here because Black people can't afford driver's licenses. And I'm sitting there going, do you hear yourself? I mean, how much does a driver's license cost? $20, $30? And if it is such an issue for any group, and I don't believe it is, but if it is, just offer it for free. So, they just don't want voter ID because they want the fraud to happen.
I'm waiting for somebody to say that to me because I want to go, hey, can you give me a ride back to my house? I'm too stupid to know how to get an ID, so I can't drive. All right, let's move on here. So David Hogg plans to challenge safe Democrat incumbents. Out with the old, in with the Gen Xers. So activist and bicycle peddler to shoot. I just hate him for that. I mean, he wasn't even there, pedaled his way there, then hid in a closet, to the park they're shooting. So I don't hate him, but I loathe him. So he's an activist. He was voted the DNC vice chair, David Hogg, or he's a pig, whatever. He's launching a $20 million campaign to unseat entrenched Democrat incumbents. And this was reported by Politico and other outlets. And it's a progressive push. It's being led by his group called We Deserve. Supposedly they have 20 million and they want to reshape the party, but they do face opposition from within the DNC, including the chair, Ken Martin, and party insiders. Hogg is a big-time gun control advocate, and Martin doesn't believe in targeting safe seats. And at the end of the day, this is a civil war that is getting ready to take shape. I don't think it's a civil war Hogg and company will win. Why? The Hogg and AOC and their ilk, socialist progressives, they had two shots at the apple with Bernie Sanders. When they are seen in the limelight, when the spotlight is on them, they crumble. It's like ultraviolet rays on bacteria. It just they wilt away because their policies can't stand up. And then when they try to articulate them, even if they do articulate them, they're so out there that even the moderate Democrat who usually cha-chings Democrat, when they listen, they're like, oh, dear God, no, who is this guy? Communist Hogg. And so I think that's going to cost them. And I also believe they may have 15, 20 million, but they don't have the billionaire donors on their side. They're uncontrollable. So the billionaire donors will not go to them. Soros backed all these DAs to create chaos. But within the party, the elected officials, they don't want chaos. Annette, your thoughts?
Thank you, because I have a lot of thoughts about this, actually. I think this boy is very naive, and he's going to get sort of an ass whooping by the DNC. No, Ken Martin, he already said, he said it in his little quote. It says it all. He said, we really appreciate his service, whether he's inside or outside capacity. So I don't see him on the inside for very much longer, actually. I don't think he really knows what he's doing. And I think he's playing in a much bigger sort of network than he actually really understands or realizes. So yeah, it sounds really great. We're going to take out some of the old people, put in some of these younger people that he thinks will fight harder and be more sort of activists. But he's stepping on a lot of toes. He's making a lot of people angry within the DNC. They're very powerful. They're very entrenched. And he's way out of his league. I feel sorry for him in a way.
Oh, I agree. G, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to bring this to another thing that's happening right now. And it's Bernie Sanders and AOC going around the country, right, with their rallies. Yeah. And I'm not sure which one's running at the top of the shadow presidency ticket, but they're basically trying to take the party further left, just like David Hogg is. And it's astounding to me. But I think it's good because the Democrats are now going to fight for the soul of their party, right? They're going to have to decide, do they go more to the middle or more to the left? If they take it to the left, I think they're going to lose middle America in 2028. And JD Vance or whoever it is going to be president next term. So, I believe that, if David Hogg has any success with this, it's bad for their party.
I agree. And look at that picture. I mean, that guy could fit right on into 1940s Nazi. What did they call his brown shirts or whatever they called him with his little Nazi salute there? I'm being sarcastic only because it's an image caught of him. But what do they always accuse us of being the Nazis? Yet there's one of your own, a young little white whippersnapper there, wanting to push the Nazi away. I always tell my fellow Latinos, man, who are Democrats, y'all are too stupid to realize they haven't done a damn thing for us, and you still keep going cha-ching. And they give me these dumbfounded looks because they never keep up with politics. So I go, what has the Democrats done for you guys? Republicans are racist. Yeah.
Well, Thomas Sowell said that Obama was the worst thing for the Democratic Party because there was so much hope built into him that he would change everything. But after 8 years, everything was still the same. And I think a lot of people were disillusioned because they thought this would be a new corner in race relations. But remember, when did BLM start? It was under Obama. It was in 2012 BLM started. And then who did Obama give birth to? Donald Trump. So now the Democrats themselves are looking at Obama going, well, you can talk, but you gave us Donald Trump, so we don't want to listen anymore.
What you talking about, G? What you talking about? Any final comments on this, Miss Annette?
No, I think that they lack a platform. I mean, it's one thing just to be anti-Trump and anti-everything that he does, but tell me what you're going to do for me. Like, tell me what you believe in. Tell me.
I disagree, and let me push back on you. I'll give you a chance to respond, but they have a platform.
No.
Their platform is take from the rich, redistribute the wealth. That's their platform. They attack oligarchs. Honestly, none of us view that as a legitimate platform, but that's kind of their platform. Respond.
I see them as empty vessels. You think so? Their thing is more of like an even base, more of like a communist sort of. That's what you're saying.
So it's a class warfare. That's how Lenin took over. It's class warfare is what they're doing. Oligarchs, AOC, we hate the oligarchs. What's that? We got to gas up my private jet to go to the next stop. Okay, that's my whole point. David Hogg is living high on the hog and earning $150,000 through his nonprofit.
I think, though, William, then this is a very important point. I think if people like my daughter, who we talk about a lot on this show, actually believe that was their platform, they wouldn't buy into it. So the Democrats that are buying into it, we know there are millions, right? Millions of people still did vote for Kamala. So millions of people are still voting for the Democratic Party. There's still a lot of people who are buying into that. You think that that's what they're buying into? I don't think so. I don't think that. No. Yeah. People that I know that are Democrats are not, don't believe it's communist.
It's not, you can call it communism, socialism, authoritarianism, a dictatorship. It's class warfare. They put all the blame on the oligarchs. The rich they're not paying their fair. The rich aren't paying their fair share. What is that? And that is class warfare.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you, but don't you see, and isn't the best way to bring people along is to see that that's how they think of Trump? They think that he is the dictator. The problem is we have to try to help them along in their thinking.
And what I will say is their ultimate goal, I agree with William, the ultimate goal is to create a socialist society.
Of course you agree with William.
No, I agree with that. But then I agree with you. The way they get there, the way they get the votes is to say, okay, well, do you care about the clean air? Do you care about the clean water?
Yes.
Do you care about your friend who's gay? And then they'll make these fake, us versus them arguments so that you will vote for the Democrats. But Republicans care about clean water and clean air, and they're not anti-LGBTQ. So, that's just their platform to get to the ultimate goal is higher taxes, more spending.
Okay, so yes, so you're right, William. That's the ultimate thing, like what you just said. He said it so well, the class warfare. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying they've convinced a swath of people that they care deeply. That's the problem, and people buy into that. It's fake.
Right. Look at your daughter. She's struggling in New York City.
Yes.
You think she's actually saying, "Oh, I'm struggling," but it's not the Republicans' fault. And she's a hardcore leftist. So yes, in her eyes, it is the Republicans' fault because that's the mantra. That's the messaging. All right. Tulsi Gabbard confirms election fraud claims at Trump cabinet meeting. So on Patrick Bet David, he had this Finnish tech guy, and within 6 minutes, he hacked to a voting thing. We don't know. No, I haven't bothered to look at the details of the Dominion winning against against Fox or that, but as we're finding out, a lot of evidence gets withheld that because we have a new administration in, we're finding more things out. So she's talking about security flaws, tabulating systems. We see all the reports. And for the audience out there, I always bring up voter fraud, not because I rehash something. There's always something new. Every time I bring it up, it's because new information. And now the big dog, Tulsi Gabbard, our DNI secretary, has announced an investigation into voting system vulnerabilities. As Annette said earlier in the show, there's a reason Trump wants to go back to pencil and paper. Look, as much as I loathe the French, I don't think they've contributed anything in World War I and World War II, and barely anything ever since. They know how to vote. They do paper ballots, and they get all their voting done in one day. Thoughts on Tulsi and what she's talking about here, Mr. G? Then we'll go to Miss Annette.
Yeah, I mean, it astounded me that she said that in that cabinet meeting when I was watching it, and then the media didn't report on it at all. I mean, they were completely silent about it, and it makes me wonder. I believe she said that there's evidence that they could be hacked, not that necessarily there was evidence that they were hacked, but the fact that they could be hacked is enough to say, okay, the whole 2020 election, there's just too many questions around it, right? Again, 12 million voters suddenly disappeared, and we know 12 million people didn't die from COVID between 2020 and 2024. So, and they weren't all Democrats because they were all vaccinated and wearing their masks, right? So yeah, I hope to see, Tulsi find something and we can go back to a sane voting system here, paper ballots, voter ID across the nation. That would be an amazing win for this presidency.
I agree. Annette, are you for paper ballots or for?
Yes, of course. I mean,
I said the question.
well, you're always trying to help me out, but it was interesting that that would be a great accomplishment. Gee, you're absolutely right. That she was talking about the vulnerabilities, and then weren't they being hypocritical, trying to accuse her sort of like a voter fraud by saying that she voted in Hawaii when she actually lived in Texas? Didn't they come out against her, William?
Oh, the moment she told Kamala or Hillary, the moment she went against those two, she was persona non grata.
Yep.
So, do you know what I'm talking about? How that was them. It was in the article that I read about this very thing.
You know what? I don't remember that.
No, they accused her of voter fraud herself. They accused her of voting in Hawaii when she actually was living and registered, newly moved to Texas with her husband. So it's like, what I'm saying is that they're so hypocritical. And they're saying there are discrepancies and problems with the system, against Tulsi Gabbard, when she's saying to the very point, yeah, there are, and there are vulnerabilities, and she's trying to expose it. But I feel like they only want to highlight it when it's someone who they're against.
Let me tag on to that. So on X recently, I want to say a week or two ago, there was a 22-minute montage of Democrats up to the 2020 election saying that this Dominion voting machines had too many security vulnerabilities and are open to hacking so that there could be voting fraud until it benefited them. And all of a sudden they're saying, oh, there's no evidence of fraud. And Trump, every media article is always Trump falsely claims. So the Democrats are talking about this, and it's not just one. It was like quite a few people, including Hillary Clinton, was saying, and Hillary Clinton, don't come after me, but I'm just saying what you said.
I can't find you, G.
But she herself said it, and it's all on video. So they know that there could be voter fraud until it benefited them. Correct. Then they're silent about it.
Correct.
And Annette, to digress just for a moment, this is where it is class warfare. There are truly elites who want to control the masses. And if they can't get it's like Stalin said, it's not who votes, it's he who counts the votes. And I've seen it every day. Just last week, I see people who think they're smarter than other people. I see people who haven't done much in their own lives, who truly in their heads think they're smarter than the smartest people who are uberly successful, good and bad, So we live in a messed up world. But my point being is we have that type of ignorance and not realizing the powers that be who also think that they actually have the power to control and manipulate. So I truly believe that technology is not helping us. Technology is allowing the rich and the powerful to control us more through the potential of voter fraud. Because if you have to show an ID and you do a paper ballot and it gets counted by somebody looking at it, that immediately takes away all the tabulations of a system doing it that can be hacked into. As I said, that Finnish guy hacked into that system within a few minutes on Patrick Bet-David. I don't believe for one moment that Dominion earned that $700 million lawsuit. I think those were powers that be. Call it conspiratorial, whatever. But I got to be honest, every conspiracy theory I've touted since 2016 is proven to be true. So this one here is, I'm glad they're investigating it. I just hope it doesn't get buried with the nothing to see here. Any final comments before I move on?
Not for me.
No.
All right. Let's go to America's newest racist, Jasmine Crockett. That's on me to the audience. I don't want G or Annette to get tied with that since they are actually officers. But as a Latino who has every color in our family, when I hear Jasmine Crockett talk, especially how she talks about Latinos, she talks about us as nothing but dirt people who are only good enough to clean toilets. She looks down on us in a very racist way, and her own words show her to be a racist. And we've got to stop tolerating that nonsense. So now that I'm done with my rant, let's get down to the real issue about this racist. the FEC is investigating her for ActBlue donations. So there's a complaint against her for alleging campaign finance violations tied to ActBlue donations. And that was reported last week by the Daily Signal. The mainstream media's silence on this probe, it's deafening, the silence, and it's obvious potential bias to help cover and not to help cover up and not cover potential scandals. In her defense, I would imagine this is not big dollars. Actually, I'm not saying this in her defense. What I'm saying is, truthfully, I believe it's probably not huge dollars, and she'll probably get fined for it. But what people don't realize is ActBlue is coming up in a lot of investigations for money that seems to be coming from everywhere, but the actual individual who they say is donating it. Annette, your thoughts on Miss Jasmine Crockett? Oh, and well, Jasmine, wear a proper wig when you go out in public. Come on.
Didn't she get $870,000 through ActBlue?
Holy man. Then I retract my statement. That's some serious cash flow.
Yeah, it was real money. Now, some of the people that they were looking at, those were some smaller donations, but overall, she received $870,000 from ActBlue. So I think they don't know how much of that. They're saying based on these other allegations that maybe the same thing happened and other people donated through ActBlue and didn't even know it. Do you know what I'm saying? That's how I understand this to be going on. So it is a lot of money in the end. I just don't think they know how much of it happened with people's knowledge of making those donations or not. And so they have uncovered that some people, and the guy who was, I think he was on X, said he went to these people's house and they had no idea that they don't, right? So, and basically, is there more of that? And how much more of that is there?
Yeah, I heard somebody say, "What you talking about, Willis?" Gee, your thoughts on her comment? This is a Democrat mantra. I'm innocent. This is the weaponization of the Department of Justice against us poor rogue Black Democrats. That's the line they're starting to use. What's your thought on them stating? And I say that because we all know when the DOJ was really weaponized and against who. And it wasn't an American Democrat, but a white rich billionaire. You know, your thoughts on that and the fact, G, there's over 30 state attorneys that are investigating ActBlue right now.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to John McCain, and he did the campaign finance reform, and money is like cockroaches. Like, you're going to find a way to get around the rules and get the money right back to the candidate that you want. And Annette and I both know someone who donated to Obama when they really didn't. And it was just, I think ActBlue was somewhat involved in that. This is going back 12, 14 years. But I think when you look at ActBlue and all the donations that they give to candidates, so it's always like $100, $100. And I'm sitting there going, okay, is this a billionaire? And then they just have a voter roll that, you know, Democrats, and they say, just put this name on it and just give it to this candidate.
Right.
I think there is some kind of scheme that goes on there that I think they need to be investigated and busted if that's what they've been doing. I'm not sure that Jasmine Crockett would be involved in it, like, directly.
I wonder that too.
Yeah, I think she would just receive it.
She would be smarter than that, I would hope.
Yeah. But that said, she's used taxpayer dollars for her big old luxury car, her trips here. On a side note, Senator Van Hollen, whatever his name is, from my understanding is his reimbursement was rejected for his El Salvador trip. That's good news.
Oh, good. Right. Oh, it was. Oh, good. It was? That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but that's what my anonymous sources from the New York Times are telling me. All right. So Harvard is resisting and dodging Trump's DEI requests faster than they dodge Asian applicants. You know, if you're not aware, Harvard was one of two universities who were specifically sued for tossing qualified Asian students who deserved the slots were underqualified, mostly Actually, they were all minorities, mostly Black Americans. And I say that for two reasons. You're setting up people to fail who aren't prepared for that type of university, and you're tossing people who are qualified and have worked their tails off their whole life to get in. And they don't want to give up the DEI. Annette, your thoughts?
I mean, William, I feel like this article was so upsetting to read. But I got to ask you, as a fellow conservative, he made an interesting point. Gerber said, it's a private institution.
No, it's not. It's private in name only. They see. This has been proven in court. It's just the government rarely enforces it. Once you take public money, you're no longer private. You may deem yourself private. It may be legally when you're private, but the moment you take public money, taxpayer money, the courts have ruled no, the government has a right to come in and make demands.
Well, then they've got a huge endowment, right? Way more than I even realized. So maybe what they have to do is not take any more funding from the thing is, even in the parts that talk about the protesters and so forth, isn't that freedom of speech? That's something that you and I defend.
For an American citizen, it depends, but it's not freedom of speech when just going to a different university, because they were all pretty much the same. It's not freedom of speech when the school tells you you can't come on campus because we can't protect your safety, and you're going to take your courses this week via Zoom or online. So there's a difference. You see, we toss around that freedom of speech as if it's our God-given right. It's our God-given right to do it within the framework of the law and the Constitution. You don't have the right to go in somebody's face and threaten them and say, die, 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 you pig, and intimidate them and say that's protected speech. It's not. But in this case, there's a lot more of that of DEI in terms of their hiring process, where qualified people are not being hired simply because they're not the right gender or the right color.
Right, they want to have their quotas. So if they wanted to and they decided we're not going to take any more money from the federal government, then they're considered private.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. But as G will tell you, any rich person will tell you, don't use your own money when you can borrow the money. And that's kind of what Harvard and all the universities do. Why use their endowment money when the federal government will give you free money? Gee, your thoughts?
Then they have to do, but then quickly, then they've got to do what they say. I mean, that's just the way it goes. You don't get it both ways.
I agree. You agree. But when you have activist judges on the courts.
All right, G, I gotta hear you.
I think it's great that we don't have to give them money anymore, public funds. I think they can do whatever they want. If they want to be pro Hamas, pro terrorists, fine. Let's not give them money. Let them earn their own money. And I think let the people, their consumers, their students, and their alumni speak on the direction they want Harvard to go, but not take our money. I don't want to fund that.
I agree. And it's 53.2 billion they have in endowments. I got to be honest, guys.
That's a lot.
Government do an audit on these universities, just like banks do on people would go, they determine how good we are for a loan. It's like they need to do an audit on these companies. No, you don't need the taxpayer money. You have enough in endowments yourself. And if they do that, I think the whole structure of these universities would change. And maybe not for the better, because then nobody but the what do they call the kids? The legend kid, the kids who have parents who went there, things like that. What do they call those kids? And they get in. There's
a legacy.
Legacy kids, yeah. I didn't do a paper on it, but I did research on it for a topic in class. And back in the mid 1990s, like 70% of Ivy League kids were legacy kids, and their average was like a C average for most of them. The whole point of the article was how little slots there are for people to actually start living the American dream. And it's true. Once you graduate from one of these Ivy Leagues, if you're networked, you're going to go into the corporate world. and you're going to do well, And let's be honest, in the business world, it's about charisma, savviness, and ruthlessness more than it is how high that GPA is in your physics or other class, because you can learn the aspects of business without the university. I'm as a business major, I learned more working at the nonprofit, working in the military, and doing up my own business than I did at all in college, because college, all that they taught me the big corporate world. Here's how the productivity, this or that, and they teach you from that level. But
to your point, William, it's the connections that you get from an institution like that.
Exactly. Any final words on Harvard? All right, that's how highly we all think of it. All right, let's go down to the Trumpmeister. Trumpmeister, at last count, has brought in $3.3 trillion in pledges. And when I did my research, when they added all out with everything else in their expectations, you're looking at over $7 trillion in potential investment in manufacturing factories into America. And the reason I bring this up is Nvidia announced plans to produce AI supercomputers entirely in the U.S. And that was reported by Nvidia themselves. I got that. That was a press release off their website. And it's going to support AI. AI is a big thing. We need these super chips, these supercomputers. Now, talking about 5,000 jobs, their investment is valued at hundreds of billions over 4 years. And this is what Trump's America First policies are talking about. Holy mackerel. I apologize to the audience. We don't get many questions here. So
we got one?
Yeah, we got some Yeah. Oh, Hody. Here we go. Hody, thank you for tuning in, brother. Hody, to give him a plug, is the co-host of the Free for All Libertarian. As a libertarian, I believe political elections will have fraud so long as they are under political control. Well, Hody, that's kind of like I was going to say an oxymoron. It's not. That's kind of like how it works, because the government's always going to be the one who's always going to be running the elections. I mean, that said, you have groups like now the League of Women Voters, or whatever they're called, who they do a lot of debates and all that. But who could run it that you could trust? Who wouldn't be bought? I think what it boils down to is having a transparent process. Gee, your thoughts to Hody?
No, I agree. I mean, who else would you put in the hands of private citizens? And then I can't remember what I saw. Was it some series on History Channel with Ulysses S. Grant, where a black guy comes in to vote, and there was a bunch of white guys standing around going, "Who are you voting for?" And then they let him vote if he gave the right answer. So, I mean, you're always going to have some kind of issue. And I think the government doing it is the best way to hold that whole thing accountable, because if the politicians are not doing their job correctly, we vote them out.
All right, Annette, I want you to respond to Hody on this one here.
Okay.
Very little is more important than diversity. Very little is more evil than the government trying to facilitate diversity. And the government has, Hody. We called it affirmative action. And you're right, diversity is extremely important, but only if you're qualified. Because when you're not qualified, then everybody begins to question, well, did they get the gig because of diversity, or were they qualified? So, and that, as a Latino, I find that disgusting if somebody would ever look at a black man, a Latino, or an Asian. Well, we can't count those damn Asians. They're too damn smart. Now, who's going to blast me for your stereotyping? Yeah, I'm joking. But my point is you got to have qualifications. Annette, your thoughts for Hody there?
No, it's Hody. It reminds me of that quote by C.S. Lewis, which talks about, like, there's nothing more oppressive than the government trying to do something for you, like saying it's for your own good type of thing. Like, I'm gonna do this for you in a tyranny. It's sort of like a tyranny, because I know better. It's for your own good. So the government getting involved and saying they know best is for your own good is always like sort of like a oppressive tyranny kind of thing. So I sort of feel like that reminds me of that, and it's sort of similar. That is,
I'll doing that. you need government to create the change, to start the change, but it has to happen naturally. That's how it'll be accepted. I always tell my relatives, look, racism every generation gets less and less. Because I'm like, in today's current tribalistic world, if racism was as prevalent as Democrats say it is, why have there been over 400 race hoaxes created? Most recently, about a month ago, a woman in Allentown, Pennsylvania, caught creating a racist claim that wasn't true. Or you get Bubba Wallace, at the garages, you have the little string that comes down with the little hook, and you grab it. He claimed that was a noose. So each generation it'll be less and less. But it took government kind of help facilitate that. But to your point, Annette, that's kind of what screwed it up. Homophily means cultures like to be amongst their own. So integrated busing, when they sat there and bused kids to schools miles and miles away, putting a few black kids in an all-white school, probably wasn't the best way for the government to do that. So everything that goes wrong will go wrong when the government is involved. But I'm okay with the government starting it as long as they let it go. But the problem is the government never lets anything go. G, your thought before we get to Nvidia.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick, and this kind of illustrates the problem with the government. And I agree with Hody. UCSD, or the UC system, started implementing affirmative action. I think it was 94, 95 time frame. And I started around 91. And I was arguing with some of my friends who were Black and Hispanic that this is a bad policy. And they're like, well, you got in because of that. And I'm like, no, I got in because of my merit. And they're almost using it as an insult. Like, you're an affirmative action person. It's like, no, I got in, I earned it. So even within the communities that they're trying to help, at least back then, affirmative action was used as an insult. Like, you got in not because you were good enough, but because of your skin color. And so it just promotes bad behavior on all part.
Exactly. And for the record, I have Asian in my blood, so y'all can't be coming at me. I'm lucky. I got a lot of in my blood. Us Latinos, we're like mutts, especially us Panamanians, because it's like every country went through that canal. All right. So, G, your take on Nvidia, and that we know 3.3 trillion have done in commitments after it's Austin, and then we're looking at 7 trillion in manufacturing, new factories, new investments in America. Your thoughts on Nvidia with the supercomputer and overall?
Yeah, I mean, we're really on the precipice of something revolutionary, I think, in the tech field in terms of the AI. And we've had some initial AI, and that's like the 1996 web page, right? The World Wide Web that we used to call it. But this new AI that's called agentic AI, which is a back and forth type of AI where you ask it to do something for you and it self does it until it's correct. That's really amazing. And you really need like supercomputers, super horsepower graphics cards to do this. And I think Nvidia is trying to do that. But you get all this money that's coming in from these other companies like Apple and TSMC and all that. I think it's going to be a huge boon to us. I do believe that in the short term, there's going to be some pain as we're decoupling from China. But I think this is amazing. I think this is going to bring a lot of jobs back. It won't be one-for-one jobs. I mean, in China, for every 10 people, will probably hire one person in America. So it's probably a 10-to-1 type of thing. But then we supplement them with robots and more AI to get more stuff done. But I think it's amazing to see this coming back home to our shores.
I think so. I asked Grok, find me a woman. And they said, is it payday? How much you got? And the trillions in money investments. Now, in full transparency, these are pledges. They've pledged to come in. What has to happen next are the tax cuts to benefit these corporations, that give them reason to come in. And when people hear that, well, that's a rich taking from the poor. No, that's how you get jobs created. You give them a cut here. It's not fair, but life has never been fair. Because you know what I don't see as fair? 40% of Americans don't pay taxes, which means they don't care what happens in the country because they have no stake in it. So fairness is seen from the eye of the beholder. Your thoughts on that? Not on fairness, but on the trillions of us.
I was going to say, I don't think it's fair that I broke my toe. So no, no, I think I couldn't add anything to what you guys said, except I do want to say that I just watched a documentary on Nvidia and AI. And you guys probably didn't see it because it was just yesterday. And it was fascinating. And I think part of the conversation we have to have in the future is about, it really talked about the AI wars, what they're doing in China, what Nvidia is doing, what North Korea is doing, the kind of robots that they're creating, and the kind of jobs that they will potentially be doing, like as a companion in a nursing home. I mean, all kinds of, I mean, I wondered really after seeing that what the workforce is going to look like in just like 5 to 10 years. And I had a lot of like ethical questions about it. So I agree with G. It's great that it's coming back here. It's going to be interesting more than anything to see what happens with artificial intelligence and the ethical parts about it that no one really, I mean, I don't know if they're having some of those conversations, but definitely not enough of them. I think honestly, it made me feel like they were like somehow devaluing what it was like to be human. You know, the human experience feels less than when you're talking about what robots can do to replace human beings, especially when they're talking about them as companions and like trying to like make people less lonely, or, you know, you have to at some point it would be a fascinating conversation to have. But economically speaking, how do I know how that's going to play out? I mean, it's great that it's here, William, but also what jobs are we going to lose? I mean, I was thinking of every single sector they were showing robots could do it. Well, obviously in war, it was incredible what they could do. It was incredible what they could do in submarines. It's incredible what they can do with the drones. It's incredible what they can do with like them shooting and fighting. That was crazy and incredible. It's incredible what they could do serving and for service, pouring coffee, having fine motor. I don't know. It's a weird world.
Let me jump in on this because I was just having a conversation with some. Okay. No, I didn't. I watched one about war and AI, but here's what I think. So if you go back to the Roman and Greek days,
mm-hmm.
So we were talking 2,000, 2,500 years ago, they actually brought in slaves. They would conquer an area, bring in slaves. The slaves would do all their work for them. And what did they do? They stopped working and they would sit there and argue about politics. And that's in philosophy, right? So that's why you had all these, you know, Plato and Socrates, because they had someone else doing the work and they could sit around and argue all day. Idle is the devil's playground. So here's where I'm taking this is not that we have slavery, but if you have robots and AI doing the work for you, then what does a full-time work mean? A full-time work week is probably 15, 20 hours a week, and then you have a lot more time to do whatever you want. And food is being done by robots, so the price of food gets cheaper. You can afford that on a 20-hour-a-week job. And you know, I think that's where we're headed. Then we have a lot more recreational time. We get lazier, fatter. We argue a lot more.
No, I agree with you. Zanette was talking. My whole take is I'm a philosopher of human nature.
Oh no.
But my point is sacrifice, working hard, understanding, giving, loving. All that gets kind of tossed aside when somebody's doing everything for you. You become more callous. Your idea, like you said, if everybody's talking philosophy, you could go 10 zillion directions that's not based off of anything you've actually done, but theory. And that's going to take us down some ugly potential roads. And that's where the ethics come in. All of a sudden, war is going to be calculated, meaning, theoretically, we could pull it off versus, have you been a soldier in the trenches before? And I'm using a very easy example, but that'll be the disconnect. So I, you know, it's in a way, I'm glad. I believe I was born in the greatest generation because I got to experience, Willie, it's dinner time. I'm outside every day. When school got out in the summer, I was running around in the jungle, walking. My parents had no clue. I was 6, 7, 8 miles from home in the jungle playing around or doing this or going here, going there. Now you have fat kids playing video games. You know, you look at yesterday's man compared to today's man, our whole society, and I'm expanding this to include the foods we eat, the types of foods, our testosterone, our estrogen. So technology is not always for the best. I'm not trying to be a doomsayer, but I'm trying to sit there and say, there's a lot of downside to our lives now. Just because we're living longer does not mean we're living healthier. Before we leave this topic, though, to Annette's point, here's the final point before I give some of the examples. We keep saying, well, who's going to be working in the factories? Are you kidding me? You don't think these coal miners put robots in the coal mines, and these people will be more than happy to work an assembly line and putting Apple phones together. We have this ignorant, stupid white knight belief, whatever they call it, thinking everybody's super smart. Everybody can do. There's a lot of people who just want direction. Hey, if I'm earning, $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, living in West Virginia, putting Apple phones together, I'm happy. And I'm not saying that's all they're good for, but we just seem to have this thought process that everybody's above that. There's a lot of people willing to work hard in a factory, willing to work. I have friends in the military who retire. You know what they want? Yeah, I'm going back home to Arkansas. Tyson's hiring, because they're just looking at supplementing their income. They're happy, paid job, benefits, all that. And so I'm not saying that people are worthless and that's all they can do. I'm saying don't undersell what an American will do when you take the illegal out of it. Well, they won't do that job. Yeah, they will. They'll get paid better. The reason they won't take that job right now is because they're paying an illegal a third of what they would have to pay the Americans. So every job out there, and we need to teach our kids accountability, responsibility, leadership, working as a team in tough situations. Work does that. So my fear with all this technology is, as a nation, we will be destroyed in the long run. So real quick, some of these countries, Nvidia's hundreds of billions, 500 billion from Apple, 500 billion from the Stargate project, that's OpenAI, 100 billion from a TSMC, that's semiconductors, 200 billion from Nvidia, 100 billion from SoftBank, 55 billion from Johnson Johnson. I don't know if that's good. 27 billion. I don't know if that's good. 600 billion from Saudi Arabia, 1.4 trillion from the UAE, 1 trillion from little old Japan, and 300 billion from G's homeland, India. My Panamanian and Puerto Ricans, I guess, we're the ones asking for money.
Yeah, coming up in the rear from all the other countries that are doing at least 3 times as much.
Can I say something? Did you say 1.4 trillion from the UAE?
Yeah.
Did I tell you, have I been on the show since I went to a seminar, to like a little panel discussion when 4 of the guys were from the UAE? And you know what they said about him? I didn't tell you guys. Oh my gosh, I got invited to this thing. They were dressed in the whole thing, with the long thing and the thing on their head and the sandals and the white whatever. And my daughter thought they were total misogynists, but I brought my daughter with me just so she could have the experience. What the guy said was, the only reason, I told you about this, G, the only reason he would ever have his kids in an American school was for entertainment, and that he thought Americans were lazy and fat, and they would continue to be lazy and fat, and that artificial intelligence was going to make them lazier and fatter and incapable of having critical thinking or making any decisions. That's what he said.
See, I was born and raised in Panama, and I came here and I experienced a great American dream. I didn't become wealthy, but I mean, what 5'7" Latino can sit there and say, I helped pioneer and commercialize the fantasy sports industry?
You did become wealthy. Do you have food to eat every day? You're wealthy. You have a house over your roof.
But my point is I, as an American citizen whose formative years were in a third world country, I do agree with that sentiment quite a bit. That's why I'm always pushing education. Look, the Japanese, the Chinese. I mean, there's a reason the Chinese's version of TikTok is STEM or STEAM related, and ours is booties and video related. I'm not saying that to hurt America. I'm saying we got to take back our education system. We got to.
We're lazy and fat.
We got to sit there and take away the participation trophies. Daddy, I came in last place. Look at my trophy. In my age, son, give me that trophy. Boom, and you throw it out. So yes, we are. Look, how many times have you heard we are a society of where people expect things? What's that term? There's that term, where generations now expect things.
Entitlement generation.
We are a generation, and I'm not saying that to knock it. I'm saying that's what the test scores show. That's what the expectations show. In France, about 30 years ago, I remember reading an article, and when they were polling French college graduates, they were all going, well, I'm hoping I can get a job with the government. I'm hoping I can get a job with the government. Now, and that was unheard of. Well, I'm hoping Intel's hired, or Intel wasn't around, but IBM's hiring, or this is hired. Now, these kids are saying, I'm hoping I can get a job with the government. I'm hoping I can get a job with the government. So that's a product of laziness. Why do they want to work for the government? The easy paycheck, the days off. And that's what I mean by AI. He is absolutely right. And it's not that you have to like it. You have to understand their long-term strategy.
Well, I will argue that it's not just an American thing. AI is all over the world, and every society is going to be hit by it, good or bad, and they're all going to get lazier. I mean,
he was talking schooling, our indoctrination, our entertainment. That's what they're. It's AI's just. He's just saying AI is going to make us even lazier. Is what he's saying, which you were alluding to earlier in the topic. But to me, it's a school. We have to take back the schools because they're not teaching how to indoctrinate. I mean,
one of his interesting points was, will leaders in fields look to AI to make decisions for them, and then because they will do that, will they lose their accountability for those decisions?
Oh yes, they will. I mean, people call me anal, but I use AI a lot to build these projects. But I'm always cross-referencing, cross-checking. I know good and well most of the people are taking what AI says on the first go, and that's it. And ask G. I showed G how I used it, and that's why all my stuff becomes long-winded at times, because I get anal and I want the accuracy. But I have come to realize I'm the exception.
But I will push back on this point. So I don't necessarily think it makes us lazier. William, you have a very dapper jacket there. I'm sure you didn't sit in the back. You didn't spend 3 weeks sewing it yourself, right? You just decided, I'm not going to waste any time sewing this. A machine did it. I'll just buy it and do something that's more important to me. And I think that's what AI will do. Like, instead of me spending 3 hours writing something up, or, like you said, the research that you do to put 20 pages of notes out, that could take, 20, 30 hours, but you're able to do it in 3 hours. Right. So now you have other things you can do and put your effort towards. It doesn't mean you're lazier. You're just being more efficient.
More efficient, yeah.
Right. All right, guys, let us move on. And G has to depart for a few minutes here.
You're stuck with me.
You'll be back. So what's the next one? So China halts rare earth exports, impacting U.S. industry. So China suspending, because of the tariff battle, China is suspending shipping us the rare earth exports. That came from the New York Post. And this is causing all kinds of issues because we use it for medicine, for military. Military is what it's known for, and but also computers. So this is part of the tariff war. Now, that was the impetus for me to sit there and bring into this discussion is the ethics. And that, we don't want to do any mining in the U.S. The climate scientists, the climate activists, but they're okay with mining in China with slave-like conditions, in Africa where there are no safety conditions, where they use children to do all this mining. So my take is I'd rather see mining here it'd be done safer. And my God, we'd be saving some lives from around the world who are being literally abused. You know, we love to talk about sex trafficking, but we don't talk about the child abuse that's happening in these mines. It's all bad, is my point. Well, my point is that seems to be something that nobody wants to talk about, is how the child labor, the slave labor is done for mining. Your thoughts?
Well, I was funny that you bring that up because I was watching something about human trafficking. And so I went to AI and I asked about human trafficking. Actually, the majority of the, human trafficking happens for child labor. So you're right to that point. It's not necessarily for, I hate to say it, like for children being used for sexual reasons, sex trade. I'm sorry, I don't know how to even, that's just like that thought to me is just so upsetting. It really was more for what you're describing, for working in conditions and using children for work. So I guess all of these things that happen in other countries, when I read about them now, William, it's very hard for me because I think I've allowed myself to not think about the horrible things that can happen to people and that do happen to people in our world. And so I would agree that even if there was a cost to us as a country to do it the right way and to set an example for doing it the right way, I would much prefer never to take from a place where that kind of thing is happening. And I know, isn't it true that China has bought a lot of those mines in Africa, right? I mean, they're not necessarily owned by those nations themselves, but China has done a bit of a land grab there, I'm pretty sure. I read that a while ago. So yeah, you know me, I'm a sensitive soul. And so sometimes I will, and you brought up Lenin earlier in our conversation. And I also just, I guess because I've had my toe broken, I've had my foot up watching documentaries, and I watched a really great one on the Russian Revolution, and Lenin was of course in there. And there were a lot of atrocities with the Bolsheviks, all of them. Like there's atrocities every day. And it has got me to thinking a lot about where our humanitarian, who are we as human beings? I don't know. But I'm hoping, I thought as time would go on, we become more and more civilized and less uncivilized. But there are still these things that are happening. And so I agree with you. If we can do it here and we can do it here and we can not exploit children and not exploit workers either, then that's
Right.
exactly whether it's children or workers, that's exactly what we should be doing. And then to your point earlier, that would be the greatest place for AI. If they could go into mines that, coal mine, whatever, we're making people.
Right, like I said, robots in coal mines.
Very sick. Yes, exactly. Because they're not going to, obviously, they don't have biology. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, until the AI revolution begins,
Don't scare me like that. But yeah, so you know what? Those are the kinds of things that really, really, honestly, upset me, because I think to myself, we've really gone way wrong as a civilization and our civilizations, and I don't know. I guess the best thing you can do is just try to be the person in the world you want.
Well, the best analogy I can give you to that is that commercial that came out, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. You see the guy with the big old black SUV rolling up to this beautiful scenery, comes out with a fully dressed, kind of like a suit, flips up his phone, looks around, makes a call, and goes, "Bob, we got to save this." It was a pro-climate type commercial. And I'm like, how much gas did you use up to get to that? How much did that SUV cost? How much oils are in the clothes? And not to mention, we haven't even got into the phone. You freaking hypocrites. We want to save the world without looking in the mirror and giving up all the niceties we have. Ed Begley is the only guy I respect from the Democrat side. You know why? The guy lives like in a shack with all natural power coming out because he lives the life he preaches. And I love all my toys, but I'm at least trying to bring this up at times. Gee, Africa and the DRC, that's the Congo, 40,000 children mine cobalt and rare earths. They face lung disease from dust, unsanitary water, 12-hour shifts, $1 to $2 daily. That comes from 2025 UNICEF and 2020 Science Direct. China's rare earths. They use child labor, 10-year-olds in Batal. Minimal safety, slave-like conditions. 2024 Amnesty International. Your thoughts on this disgusting tragedy, and we tolerate it because we don't say one damn word. Why? Because it's on the other side of the world.
Yeah, I mean, both parties are definitely at fault for this, but I would say the Democrats would be more because they promote, the compassion and clean environment and all that. But again, their politics ends at the shores, the country's shores, right? Because after that, it's like, well, that's not my children. That's not my children in the mines. That's not my children dying of lung cancer. So I think it's really important that Trump right now is trying to annex Greenland as a U.S. territory. And I think if he can manage that, there are a ton of rare earths there. And right now, China kind of has us like this, right? Because we get our rare earths from them by way of Africa and their own rare earth mines. But if we can get it from Greenland, then we're completely self-contained, right? We're self-sufficient, and we could do this in a humane way. We would have control over who goes in those mines. Maybe we can get robots to do it, but it would be adults going in those mines and doing it safely. And we wouldn't be using, 8-year-old kids to do this. So I think Trump's put us on the right path. And of course, the anti-Trump people out there, I mean, I don't know, they're lost their minds. Now they're anti-EV, they're pro-gas guzzling cars, they're pro-war, they're pro-globalist trade. I think we've traded spots somehow.
No, but that was your point, William, when you said you think that they are. I'm sorry, what was the word you described them as? The Democrats, not communists, but you said something else.
Authoritarian.
What? No, but you were saying that it's a class warfare. But I'm saying but to G's point, I'm saying they don't know what they stand for at all because they flip now. Just exactly what G said is absolutely right. So what do they really believe? And that's where I think people are going to wake up. They're going to see, wait a minute, they don't actually have a value system that they are, you know what I'm saying? That's got to come from within.
When they're impacted. But until people learn to critically think, which is a trait that can be taught, it's intuitive in us. But when you are pushed via your emotional hate and taught to hate something, that's overpowering. Religion actually plays on that quite a bit.
What religion is Christianity is not taught to hate.
In its day, it was, and I don't mean hate. Meaning we are the one, and we're the only religion. That's a soft form of hate, where you view yourself superior. A couple of points here. It takes decades to get a mind going here in the United States, and at any point, one person can just stop it, depending on where you're at in the bureaucracy. So companies aren't even trying to get minds here anymore because of that process. And the second point is.
But what about Greenland?
Oh, that's what I was going to say. The second point is we have plenty of rare earth spots here within the continental U.S. and Alaska. So it's Greenland sounds nice, but we can do it here. I mean, look at shale. When they discovered shale, this guy had worthless land, and then an oil prospector, or one of those guys from the big corporations, says, "We'll give you $2 billion for your land." Ooh. And then what happened? The government stopped him because of the activists. He sold the land, but then we really couldn't farm it out. Look, we could do this. And as I told G a couple of episodes ago, because I pushed back on his, I'd rather get energy from overseas than from America. And I'm like, no, because when we lease out federal lands for drilling or whatever, what comes with it are contingencies of cleaning up, of bettering the earth. So the whole cleanup that was done for the Gulf of America was done by corporations when they got all these oil refinery gigs. They were forced to put into funds and to build the climate and all that. Look, think about it. When BC oil spill happened, the cleanup was immediate. Now, it was overwhelming, but they were prepared. They knew what they needed to do, et cetera, et cetera. And the failure of the BP was not just BP. They had a big part, but it was also government laziness. Oh yeah, looks good to me. Boom, boom. And I've seen that firsthand too. All right, let's move on here. Hamas murders Gazan man for protesting against Hamas. So I have seen a few videos in my lifetime, the indoctrination of Palestinian or Middle Eastern kids who aren't Christian or aren't Jewish. And from the moment they can move, rock, they're taught to hate. I've seen that in the projects here in the U.S. too. I've seen that in the barrios in Panama too. So it's something. And my point is, you cannot go into Gaza without that hate. But there are a few. These few, the left and libertarians try to tell us are the masses. They want a two-party state. They want to get along. They don't. And what happens when they speak up? These few, well, Hamas executes them, or whoever's in power at the time execute them. So Hamas executed a 22-year-old Odey Nassar al-Rabi for protesting against a terror group. Not only did they brutally murder him and execute him, they tossed the body in front of his parents' home. They were sending a message. And my point in this story is, where was it in the news? It was nowhere to be covered in the news. And my point is, the few that actually want to get along, we do nothing to protect them or to show their plight. Gee.
So we all know, and I believe the United States and UK recognize Hamas as just a terrorist group, but they are the government of Gaza de facto, even though we don't recognize them as such.
Right.
So they are the government, and they don't allow free speech. So for people at Harvard and college students to say, well, Israel and Hamas are the same thing, let's give them, treat them fairly or whatnot, or to even elevate Hamas above Israel, it's just ridiculous. And then you see something like this where they execute someone just for expressing an opinion. I mean, it just goes to show that our media doesn't really do justice to what's really going on over there. And like you said, it's like crickets over here. This should be front page news, or at least A2. But, we should know that this is what they're doing and that Israel is our friend, not Hamas.
Right. And this is about Hamas here, Annette. But on that massacre, October 7th, they killed Jews who go into Gaza to help them, to bring them medicines, take them to the hospital. The hatred is real, whether you're Jewish, but if you're anti-Hamas, they will kill you as well. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess my first thought is, when you're talking about the people that are protesting in the United States, like at the college campuses, I always think, not to bring it back to Jesus on Easter weekend, but when Jesus said, forgive them, God, for they don't know what they do. I don't actually think those students really understand what is happening there. But if you talk to someone like I do, who actually, his parents live in Israel, was born and raised in Israel, fought in the Israeli army, he'd be the first one to tell you that the hate is so entrenched inside of these people that there is not, he can't even envision a generation, because now they're teaching their offspring, right, to hate, as you said, to your point, from the time they're very young. So, and to celebrate the death of people that are Jewish, you know what I mean? And then they kill someone who has the, now you say, what could we have done? I don't know if we could have protected that person, but you're right. It should be on the news. It should be denounced at the very least. It should be denounced. It should be front page news. It should be denounced. But someone who actually has the bravery to stand up and say what is true, I don't think I would even have that kind of bravery to stand up in a situation like that.
Exactly. And it wasn't announced or talked about. Why? It goes against the narrative.
Yeah.
Why should there be a narrative? You get a nation, you indoctrinate and brainwash a nation with the youth. When Americans are and were beloved, but when Noriega was pumping anti-Yankee, go home, all this, he focused on the university kids. Yeah, those are the minds that were most easily changed. Not the older people who lived and worked with Americans or Panamanian families who had ties to America, but the young college kids. All right, moving on. Chuck Todd, he who has no audience with his podcast. Grumblings Media has a bigger audience than Chuck Todd. Formerly of MSNBC, Meet the Press fame. Chuck Todd acknowledged the mainstream media's liberal bias, admitting a preference for narratives over facts in Trump coverage. He said, to paraphrase, that they would lie before giving Trump credit or the due that they thought he had accomplished for whatever. I don't want to spend too much time on this one because we beat this one to death over the years. But the fact is, he came out and said this recently. Maybe he's trying to pump up to go from 8 to 12 subscribers. Gee.
I mean, you just have to go back to every story that's come out in the last 8 years. And, the Hunter Biden laptop, and let's cover that up, and it's not true. Or every news story out there that says falsely claims after the word Trump. Trump falsely claims. And it's like every time I see this falsely claim, I've never seen that about any other politician. Chuck Todd is admitting right there, we cannot give an inch to Donald Trump, even if he's right. So it's terrible. I'm glad he admitted it.
And let me add on to the next topic to this one. So Marco Rubio is pushing to dismantle the censorship industrial complex within the government. These are the people who went to the civilian corporations and goes, no, the Hunter Biden laptop. No. And the media played along because they hated Trump. Oh, the COVID. Yeah, you need to censor these doctors, these people. So Rubio's actually trying to dismantle that from within the government, and he has dismantled one organization within the government. So you have the mainstream media admitting they lie. You have Rubio dismantling core aspects of it. Do you think there's hope on it?
I think they have to be careful about how they go about it. I do, because it could look like one of the things that I hated with the legacy media was, they controlled everything, and it felt like I had to go seek my own information, or I had to put my information together, and I was like my own truth seeker. You have to look at it from the other point of view. So for the people that are Democrats and they're seeing all this happen, they're getting concerned that now the control has flipped and they're trying to be too controlling, and that there's only going to be one. Again, the truth is somewhere. It's not like right or left. It's not, though.
Let me push back on that.
Okay.
They're saying that.
You're not having me on, Williams. You can fight with it. You can disagree with me.
No, they're saying that, but the reality is, has Doge taken control? Is Rubio dictating? No, they're breaking these things up. Trump election integrity. So you see, so my pushback to you is what you're telling me, I don't agree with, but you're telling me that. Why? Because that's what the media is telling you right now.
No, that's my own thinking.
Both sides do it. No, both sides don't do it. It's mostly Democrats. Now, Republicans over time, yeah, they do it. Look at the John McCain's of the world. Songbird McCain. I will always love that man. So there's always aspects, but this administration, they've been the most transparent I've ever seen any administration in my lifetime. Now, granted, technology helps that, in the fact that Trump is a camera whore, but he's transparent, response.
It really wasn't that. I'm not just, it sounds like the argument that I had at the board meeting. I don't disagree with you. I think sometimes the way it comes off, I wish it came off a little bit in a different way. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's where, like, I like what's happening so much. I want people to see the good that's going to come out of it. It is breaking and dismantling a lot of this, which I think is fantastic and so important and so critical. But I just think it is happening it's rapid fire, and I think sometimes for some people, they think, oh, it's just exchanging from one powerful hand to another powerful hand. And there's
right, you're right. That is happening, but it's happening because these people don't know how to damn critically think. Yeah. Gee, you get the final word before we move to the next topic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to piggyback on the transparency thing. So I started reading the book called Fight about the election, and I had to go back and watch the Trump-Biden debate and watch it while I'm reading along this book. And one thing Trump said, and this is going to go back to our talk on tariffs in the last 2 weeks, he said, I want a 10% tariff across the board for all countries. I've somehow forgot about that, but that's his end goal. But he's been transparent and real about it the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, he has. Speaking of the mainstream media, Big John have had discussions about this. He does not believe he wants all these corporations to win their lawsuits because he believes, the media should be protected. And my take is simple. The media has overstepped, meaning they know they're lying and they're hiding behind the Sullivan decision from SCOTUS to protect them from their lies. Well, NBC, Rachel Chris Hayes Maddow, because they both look like the same to me, reaches defamation settlement with the Georgia doctors. So NBC Universal, because they still own MSNBC, settled a defamation lawsuit with Georgia doctor Mahendra Amin over false 2020 MSNBC reporting. And that was announced last week. Now, you guys may not remember it, but we talked about this 6 months or so ago when I brought it up. I'm good. See, that's my aim on this. What's going to be coming down the pipeline? Well, they settled. Amin sued NBC Universal for falsely alleging mass hysterectomies. They called him like the uterus doctor, uterus, some derogatory name. And Rachel Maddow, a.k.a. Chris Hayes. I crack myself up. Oh, and Chris Hayes himself, or a.k.a. Rachel Maddow, correspondent Jacob Soboroff, and reporter Julia Ainsley spread falsehoods they labeled Amin the uterus collector. Now, here's the kicker. They knew this was not really true. Their producers were like, well, we're not sure on it. We're going to run with this. Yeah, because I'm Rachel Chris Hayes Maddow. Well, it cost them. And the reason they settled out is the same reason CNN settled out with Mr. Young. That jury, they knew this could go into the tens, maybe hundreds of millions in punitive damages. The settlement terms were not disclosed. NBC Universal issued a public apology. I'm sorry. These people, this doctor got his money, so he didn't care. But me, I would have said I want an apology from every single person on air. So, and my point of this is and Young versus CNN, he's attacking the AP now, saying y'all did the same thing. So my point is I agree with Big John in this aspect. We got to protect the media to be able to be our sword of truth. But when the pendulum swings the wrong way, you got to smack him down like my mama did me when I crossed the line. And it's as simple as that. Annette, your thoughts? I got to go off. I'm listening, but I got to go off the camera here real quick. Go ahead.
I mean, what are you saying? Do I agree? Wait, where'd he go? He's going to go. Well, okay. Rachel, I guess what I would just say about this is, I mean, they have to be called out for this kind of stuff. It's not really I don't know really where William was going with this. Are you
I apologize. I apologize to the audience. I have stuffed sinuses.
Yeah.
So
what's going on with you, William? You need Flonase or something?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. But that said,
that funds Eli Lilly and Johnson & Johnson. So.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you agree? Are you saying you agree?
Your thoughts on this case?
What am I don't have thoughts about this case, really.
Well, I mean, I can jump in. Like, Nancy Grace, like
I love her.
Yeah, she talks about court cases, but she comes up with a cute little nickname for them, like Hot Tot Dad, right? The guy in Georgia who left his son in the hot car to die so he could not have kids.
Nancy Grace.
But it's coming up with a cool title, so you could lead the segment with, we're going to talk about Hot Tot Dad today, and I don't know what they called the girl who left her daughter in the car with chloroform to die.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
She had a nickname.
Collar.
I think this is the same thing. They just came up with a nickname. They kept running to it. It's just ridiculous to me. I think they should be sued so they can be more responsible. That's how you hold private companies accountable, is make them pay.
Right. Here's the difference. Nancy Grace is doing it to be descriptive and cute. They were doing it to denigrate and demonize him. And there's a clear difference. I'm not condoning what Nancy Grace does, but it's a different, at that point, important thing. They were accusing him. That's what the uterus collector. There were two operations he did, and they both needed them. They were making it sound as it was over and over. Now, this is a trend that's happening. Young versus CNN, as I just mentioned, 5 million he won, but punitive damages were coming. And one of the jurors said, yeah, we're looking at probably over 100 million. So they settled quickly. Trump versus ABC News. Stephanopoulos called him a rapist. Legally speaking, he is not a rapist by what was said in court, but he was going by what the judge tried to say. That's why they didn't go to court, because it was pretty much a black and white case. All he had to say is allegedly. Palin versus New York Times was thrown out. It's being allowed back in. So they need to lose, if only to set them back on the straight and narrow. And let's be honest, the New York Times themselves have had a horrible track record, ranging from how they reported the Ukraine and Russia, the Ukraine embargo of grain from the 50s, where I want to say like millions of Ukrainians died, and the guy who won a Pulitzer for it was reporting it as it's glorious here, wonderful, beautiful. So there's long history of the media abusing their responsibilities, and I'm glad they're finally being held for having no rigorous fact checking. Maddow, Wallace, Hayes.
Are you saying, William, that John agrees with you on that? That they should?
John would rather protect him at every cost possible. And my take is, when there's abuse, you got to smack it down. Then you protect them. You protect them when it's right, but you don't protect them when they overstep the bounds.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Trump admin refers. Oh, here we go. Letitia James. She charging Trump for everything from wiping his tush to not paying money back that the bank said he paid back. She is on the hot seat over alleged. Got to say alleged so she doesn't sue us. Alleged mortgage fraud. So the Trump admin referred New York AG Letitia James for DOJ prosecution over alleged mortgage fraud. That was reported last week. The move tied to her $464 million fraud case is how Democrats are stating that it's a witch hunt. But more than one legal analyst and somebody who actually specializes in finding these scams has said, Lucy, you got some splaining to do, because that's how bad the case looks towards her. Is this a DOJ witch hunt, or is this the Democrat projecting what they're actually doing, meaning the DOJ has every right to go after her because she broke the law, allegedly? Annette?
I mean, I hate it, It's like, I just feel like when this kind of stuff happens, we go after certain people, and I'm not saying she's in the right, William, at all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it seems that there's a problem. They should be investigating, of course, but like, this is where it feels so petty to me.
Well, the pettiness is rooted in she claimed 4 units instead of 5 so she can get favorable loans. Hint, hint. That's kind of what she charged him for, but he paid his back, and the banks even said this is normal, but they still charged and convicted him. They never even really said what the charges were, and she listed. I mean, hey, you love who you love, but I'm not going to claim my mother as my wife. She claimed her father as a husband.
As a husband, yeah, yes.
The referral sites wire, mail, and bank fraud, based off of the 2023 power of attorney.
Come on, William. Don't you just hate it, though? Don't you just hate this kind of stuff?
No. Here's why. If nothing happens to Letitia, I got the way with it. I can keep on sinning. I don't believe in God. I believe in the Letitia God, doing what I want to do and charging other people while I do what I'm charging them for. So you're damn right. And what does this do? That makes that next corrupt MFer think
less likely.
Maybe I shouldn't go after that person, because it could come back to bite me in the tush, and I need to keep what I'm doing on the down low. So yes, because Big John agrees with you. Because his take is it's just going to keep going back and forth. No.
Yes.
Eventually, no, it will not. Eventually, somebody's going to go, I'm not going to do it because I don't want them to come after me. That's how it works. That's human nature. Gee, your thoughts?
No, I think if she did something wrong, she needs to be prosecuted for it. And Wasn't it Joe Biden for 4 years that said no one's above the law?
That's right, Annette. No one's above the law.
And oh, by the way, where am I supposed to go now? I mean, they got to follow their own rules. They went after Trump so he would not run for president. And by the way, in this book that I'm reading, the Biden team knew, at least since February of last year, that Trump was in the lead, and they were having a hard time breaking that lead, that Trump was going to win the election. That's why they called the debate early in June, to try to change the narrative. So a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes.
I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. They allegedly tried to kill him. Somebody did.
Right.
We know more about everybody else, yet we still don't know who that kid is from Pennsylvania. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that they were trying the lawfare all through last spring, and this is on the internal polls during the internal polls showing that Trump would win the election. So they were motivated to get this guy, Trump, in jail, or at least bring his poll numbers down, and it only amplified his poll numbers up. So. Right. That's why they went to the debate in June, is because none of the lawfare was working. So they said, let's just knock him out in the debate. Trump will get trounced by Biden, who's in his prime, is what Morning Joe said.
So a better analogy is this. The Wild Wild West was not as wild as Hollywood wants you to believe. Why? Because that cowboy walking into the bar with the black hat, who was a bad guy, odds are there was probably a faster trigger guy than him. And he knew it. So there was relative peace, because they knew if I bring my gun out, I'm going to have 20 shooting back at me. So they wouldn't do it. Same concept applies here. We use lawfare against Trump. The difference is Trump he has to dot his I's and cross his T's, because he's got the mainstream media against him, and they will twist everything, as they are doing with this El Salvadoran MS-13 thug. So he is actually doing it the right way with actual evidence. So yes, they need to go. And G's absolutely correct. They weaponized and did everything. And I mean, even Ashley Biden sat there and said, yeah, my daddy took a shower with me. Yeah. Did anything happen to him? No, it's one-sided. So the way you fight fire is with fire, and eventually, you think an AOC is going to go after Trump Don Jr. if there's dirt on her? No, she may want you, but her handler's going to go, no, darling, let's stay away from it this time. We saw what happened to Letitia and Fanny. All right, so here's my favorite topic, and I don't love talking about this. It's a tragedy. It's just the irony of it. Luigi Mangione indicted in United Healthcare CEO killing as prosecutors seek the death penalty. The reason I find this kind of the dark comedic side of me is all these women love him. They're like, oh, Luigi, I want you. Well, Luigi may want you, but Luigi's wing. He needs more than Viagra. You may love him, women, but the man can't even get it up. So what are you really loving? That's the irony I find with all these groupie girls he has. And I know I'm going in the gutter with my sailor talk, but that just cracks me up. It's because he's got mobs of women who love him. Thoughts on the hysteria of people who, Taylor Lorenz, she loves him. She smiles. She's okay with him killing somebody who was a father. Now, I don't like any of these CEOs. I don't like any of these healthcare people. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to go shoot him. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't, because that's wrong. That's not being a good human being. And if I don't like Taylor Lorenz, do I have the right to go shoot her and kill her now? And the final take on Luigi, before I pass it on to you guys, is, you morons, he was never denied health care. His health care was never denied. You're conflating two different issues, I just don't like the guy. They let him rot and die a slow, miserable death as a catcher in prison. Gee.
Well, I think Luigi comes from a very wealthy family, whereas the CEO was self-made, right? He climbed the ranks, and he came from a poor family, which I think is just an interesting dichotomy of backgrounds and the way they made their futures. But what I will say is that not every healthcare CEO is a bad person. I mean, every group has their bad bunch, and then there's a bunch of good people running. So I don't get Luigi's issue with United Healthcare. I don't even think he had United Healthcare as his insurance carrier. So bizarre. I think we can't allow this lawlessness to permeate our country. And look, if someone's successful and they're running a company that you don't like, figure out a way to make your issues known to them, but not through violence and murder. That's terrible. I hope he's found guilty and thrown in jail forever. And here's a bizarre thing. His attraction of girls, I see on X, spans the political spectrum. It's not liberals only. It's conservatives, MAGA people. They're like, oh yeah, he's the hero.
That's because of the healthcare industry and how corrupt and messed up it is.
Right.
It's who never thought Luigi uniting the left and the right? So Annette, what's your thought of
well,
Luigi?
I feel like you're going to be mad at me right now, William. But what about, let me ask you this, about the Menendez brothers. No, seriously, the Menendez brothers, right? Aren't they back now they're going to get another chance to get out of jail? The case started back up again, didn't it, for the Menendez brothers?
The judge ruled that a rehearing for a potential new resentencing.
Yeah. Okay. Here's my problem with it. I actually agree with you guys. You can't just go murder people. You can't. So I don't think, and I know my daughters would disagree with me about the Menendez brothers every day. We talk about this Menendez brothers. But I say, I understand there might have been something that happened there. I have no idea what happened there, what happened. But you still can't go out and take the law into your own hands and murder someone. I understand there's a problem. There is a real problem that maybe was highlighted with the healthcare system, and maybe now people are actually talking about how horrible it is, how you have to wait to get appointments, how disorganized it is, how difficult it is, how challenging it is to get the care that you need. I mean, to find doctors you can establish a relationship with. How everyone now is a PA and they have no idea who you are, and then they're trying to diagnose these things and they don't really know what they're doing, and their education is less than it used to be. I mean, the whole thing we could talk about all day long. So that's great. But you can't, I agree with you guys. Sorry, I do. You can't just go kill people. But I think, and this was my problem, if the Menendez brothers get off, I mean, I know they've already served time in prison, but let's say they were to get off. How do you get off for killing somebody? I'm sorry. We know they did it. They've admitted they did it. They did do it. In this case, this guy did it too. So
did it in blooded fashion too, and they spent all that buku cash afterwards with no remorse. At the end of the day, people forget they are cold-blooded killers,
right?
And people who condone. Y'all be careful what you wish for, because
no.
there's a lot of if we can start getting away with killing people, a lot of Gen Xers I don't like.
That's my problem. That's what I'm saying to you, William. You still can't get away with murder. I don't care if you think that you have a good reason for it, but you know what I'm saying?
I needed to clarify. I'm just kidding, people. My point is when you allow anybody to take a life of another, the most trivial arguments are going to end with somebody dying. And we already saw that with that case down in Texas with the 17-year-old kid being stabbed in the heart, and the family trying to make him a racial victim. My point being, it doesn't even have to do with race as much as the mentality of, oh no, I'm the victim. I had to kill him. He wouldn't give me that bubble, or he wouldn't give me those Air Jordans.
We should have led with that story. That is heartbreaking.
Yeah, because it's too controversial right now. Things need to flesh out. That's why. And I wanted to do, we're here at an hour, 40 minutes because there were so many stories.
There's so much happening.
We're going to skip another story because that was a deep, heavy one too. We'll do that one next week. But so regarding the brothers, they need a new case. They deserve a new case because of how the judge did not allow them to introduce the evidence of abuse, because the mentality, you guys may not, we were all alive back then. The mentality back then was that doesn't happen to boys, it's only girls that can be abused. So, and the judge would not let him.
Does that still give them the right to kill their parents?
No. That evidence was not allowed into the second trial. So the injustice was they were not given a fair trial. They were not allowed a fair trial.
Okay, got it.
And killing your parents to go on a spending spree, even though they did that, is very different from killing them because you find out your younger brother is being abused and you lose your mind, right? So there's different levels of that, which I think, maybe they would have gotten a lesser sentence. They would have been sentenced anyways, but it might have been less.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I hope he's found guilty, because I'll smile when I think of him being passed around as a catcher.
Luigi? You mean?
Yeah. He's not
You
a
don't
pitcher.
like him. You don't like him because all the ladies think he's cute. That's why it bothers you.
The coward. He didn't even have the manhood to sit there and look him in the eye. He shot him in the back. A pure coward. He's a type of coward. He is the shit we step on as we're walking in the yard when we have dogs is worth more than Luigi Mangione. May he suffer 1,000 deaths. May he be passed around to everybody 10 times over.
Don't say that. What's probably going to happen to him? That's a terrible thing to say.
What
about the two boys that are growing up without a father now? What about them?
That's going to justify raping this kid again and again and again?
Hell, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. In this case, well, I'm not going to. Yes, because you know why? He needs to suffer. He needs to suffer. The way he did it, the way our societies wrap themselves around it, you make an example of him. So you don't get a moron to try it again next time. You don't get another rich kid. You don't get. It's like in our era when we were kids, it was that dumb Patty Hearst moron. Oh, my kidnappers weren't so bad. Imagine hearing a Jew. Auschwitz, quite the country club. It's like no.
Well, she had like Stockholm syndrome, right?
Yes, that's where the term came from. I think. My point is, there are a lot of stupid people out there, and glorifying it. No, you make example of that, so it's not glorified. I'm sorry. Maybe that's my third world upbringing. Maybe that's my seeing dictators torture people. Retribution. And look, I'm a Christian. I do believe in eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The Bible says you don't deal kindly with your enemies, and I believe that is warranted at times. Call me vile at times, but don't ever tell me that somebody doesn't deserve it when they cold-bloodedly kill somebody who has kids in the family, and those kids will never be able to see their father. And granted, I will be the first to go. He doesn't sound like a good dude, considering health care he approved, anesthesia, being stopped halfway through the operation, and charging the patient for it. So he wasn't a good dude. But did that mean he had the right to take justice into his hands? Oh, you know what? So what's getting shanked in prison or him being passed around in prison? They're both terrible, but the point is he belongs in prison, and I won't feel bad for one thing that happens to him.
No, I don't feel bad for him spending the rest of his life in prison. I really don't. I just hate to think about what happens to people in prison. That's all. That shouldn't be. I just
think Luigi.
Well, like William said, it'll be like that the whole time. So.
All right, so Trump calls on, hey, let's have a fun, happy story. Trump calls on defund NPR and PBS. I don't even need to get into the details of this. He wants to whack $1 billion, and they're saying, no, local stations will suffer. We are fair and balanced. Thoughts on that?
Well, you didn't like the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour on PBS?
No, it's not that I didn't like it. Is at the time PBS was around, it was because there was only ABC, CBS, and NBC. Mm-hmm. And there were less than a couple hundred radio stations around the country. So it was a third option. So whether I like it or not is not relevant to the discussion. What is relevant is, do we need them? No. What is relevant is they are not unbiased. They are extremely biased. What is relevant is we're $37 trillion in debt. But wait, that's only 0.00001% of the deficit. So what? It's going to knock out 0.00001% of the deficit. So on all counts, prove me wrong, G.
No, I can't prove you wrong because I agree with you. And I remember Romney and Obama and the Big Bird thing. Remember that? Big Bird won't have a job anymore. Well, how do you know that? I mean, that's a brand. And if it's popular, then bring it to another show, bring it to another network,
Another station, yeah.
and let the commercials pay for it.
Big Bird's living large, like at HBO, one of those they did sell off.
Sesame Street.
See, I'm way behind the times.
In Acapulco with the martinis.
But Annette, who were you saying was the
I said the McNeil Era NewsHour. I mean,
Okay.
I think PBS has had some great shows. Sorry.
Yeah, but
That was the era of intellectualism. Well, Bob, there, what do you think there about?
bring that to News Nation. I mean, News Nation seems to be more like centrist, and so bring that there. Let the advertising pay for it. Or, I mean, why do we need to pay for it? I don't ever watch that stuff, and I think a lot of people don't. I try to get my kids to watch Sesame Street, and they're like, "Dad, this is boring as heck. Like, what are you making me watch? Like, I want to watch Gravity Falls, which is just like a cartoon for ADD kids. It's just like, a lot of high movement and a lot of rock music, and then you go to Sesame Street, it's like like
I think PBS has had some really good documentaries. Didn't PBS have Nova? I mean, I just feel like you think all of their programming is,
No, I'm not talking about their programming at all. I mean, I watch Nova, I watch some of their stuff on actually the one I really liked was about Reconstruction. That series was amazing. But
thank you, William.
if it's really that good and people want to watch it, it will survive in a paid system, not in a subsidized system.
Actually, that's a good point. No, gee, that's William's point. It'll survive, right? People can pay for subscriptions for it. What?
I discovered Doctor Who on PBS. Masterpiece Theater was on PBS.
Thank
and
you.
They showed Cumberland. What's that English actor's name? Cumberland something. Great actor.
Richard Cumberland.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
That Masterpiece Theaters where I first saw his Sherlock Holmes series. Now you can find it on HBO. I mean, Netflix or other places, but that's where it was first at. So yes, it has had great shows, but G is correct. If you're that good, you can go out there and earn a buck there.
Like Netflix. Yeah, we just pay for it every month if you want. Right, I get it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah, if I don't pay for it, nobody will.
Or have it added to YouTube TV and Fubo TV and Sling TV, and let everyone pay 25 cents for that channel, and there they make their money right there.
And we haven't even talked about NPR, National Public Radio. We don't need them. Hell, we got Sirius, we got podcasts, we got streaming. None of that is needed. So again,
we got us.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And you get everything from me. You get from Richard Pryor race jokes to Bill Burr political jokes. You get it all.
To my philosophy, perspective.
Yeah, I'd love to have your daughter on one day so I could eat her alive.
We are. We're going to get her on. She owes me one.
Yeah. As long as we don't talk abortion, that always stumps us Republicans, especially. Yeah, you're right. It's your choice. Move along now. Yeah, and that's our show, people. I want to thank. We've been here for a long while. There were a lot of stories. G and I just got so wonky educating you on the realities of the terrorists. But I wanted to get back a lot of stories, and I left a lot of stories out. So I hope you have enjoyed this show. Any final words there, Miss Annette?
Nope. It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you for having me.
And Mr. G Mangani, where can your fans find you? Where can your groupie girls find you?
There's a lot going on in this world, and we just can't keep up with the news. I'm glad we hit a ton of them today.
There you go. And with that, my friends, do not forget to like and share this podcast. Without your support, because we don't get government money like PBS does. Share this podcast and help us grow. Bookmark grumblingsmedia.com, grumblingsmedia.com, as well as following us on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, or Pandora under the handle Grumblings Media. We hope you enjoy the show. I am William Del Pilar for Ms. Annette Ross and the G-Man, and this has been Fired Up. And until next week, keep your head on a swivel because those Democrats are everywhere.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.